before being shot dead by police.
At least 57 inmates are killed during a prison riot in northern Brazil as rival gang factions fight each other, an official says.
U.S. rapper A$AP Rocky pleads not guilty to assault at his trial in Sweden, saying he acted in self-defense in a street brawl case that has stirred diplomatic tensions and outraged fans.
A Singaporean catering company has built a robot that serves up a piping hot bowl of laksa in 45 seconds.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. We're still following the developments out of the Gilroy Food Festival shooting. Police Chief Scott Smithy confirmed on Monday afternoon that a shooting at the Garlic Festival in California left 3 people dead: Stephen Romero, 6, Trevor Irby, 25, and Kayla Salazar, 13. Police identified the shooter, who died at the scene, as Santino William Ligon, and he was 19 years old. Let's take a listen.
We do have 3 people deceased, confirmed deceased. We have one who is a 6-year-old male victim. We also had a 13-year-old female victim, and then we had another male victim in his 20s. We don't have a motive for the shooting as yet. We did have reports of a potential second suspect. We don't have any confirmation that any second suspect did any shooting, but we certainly are investigating all leads to try to determine who that potential second suspect is and what exactly that person's role was. We found out, some of the federal agencies helping us out. We found out that the rifle that this suspect used was an SKS. It was a AK-47 type assault rifle. It was purchased legally in the state of Nevada on July the 9th of this year. And I will confirm that the suspect is the person that several news media have been inquiring about, Santino William Logan, who is 19 years old. And I say that name with some hesitation because I don't believe that somebody like this deserves the notoriety or the recognition.
We are resilient and we will get through this. This morning our prayers are with the families of those injured and killed in the senseless shooting. We stand with you and we will be providing whatever assistance we can in the days and weeks ahead.
This is Santino William Logan, and he was armed with an AK-47 type assault rifle when he opened fire at randoms on Sunday at the Gilroy Garlic Festival in California, according to authorities, before being gunned down by police within 1 minute of launching the attack. Media reports said investigators were poring over Logan's social media, including an Instagram account created 4 days ago in which he referenced a white supremacist book. It emerged that he posted hate-filled messages against mixed-race people and said he was angry just before his rage boiled over into bloodshed. The dead included the 6-year-old Stephen Romero, who was attending the festival with his mother and grandmother, who were wounded in the attack. The 2 other victims were identified by U.S. media as Kayla Salazar, 13 years old, and Trevor Irby, a recent college graduate. One message on the account posted shortly before the attack included a picture of people at the festival with the words, "Garlic Festival time, come get wasted on overpriced Some profanity there, media report said. A second message featured a photo of Smokey the Bear with a sign that read, "Fire, Danger, High Today," alongside a reference to the white supremacist book, Right is Might, which promotes anarchy. Gilroy Police Chief Scott Smithy also confirmed that investigators believe Logan had been staying for some time with relatives in Nevada, where he legally purchased the rapid-fire assault weapon on July 9.
China on Monday threw its backing behind Hong Kong's beleaguered leader, and police saying violent protesters must be swiftly punished following another weekend of running street battles in the financial hub. What began as a mass display of opposition to an extradition bill 2 months ago has morphed into a wider pro-democracy movement that has thrown down the most significant challenge to Beijing's authority since the former British colony returned to Chinese rule in 1997. The cabinet-level Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office merely reiterated its condemnation of the protests and Beijing's strong support for Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam and the city's police force, which has been accused of using excessive force against protesters.
香港近期时代的演变，特别是少数激进分子实施的暴力活动，已经严重破坏了香港繁荣稳定的大局，严重挑战了香港法治和社会秩序，严重威胁到香港市民的生命和财产安全，也严重触碰了一国两制的底线，绝对不能容忍。中央政府坚决支持林郑月娥行政长官带领特区政府依法施政，坚决支持香港警方严正执法，坚决支持特区政府有关部门和司法机构依法惩治犯罪分子，坚决支持爱国爱港人士捍卫香港法治的行动。
Meanwhile, pro-democracy lawmaker Claudio Mo says Beijing is far away from the Hong Kong people's real sentiments and demands after China's top policy body on Hong Kong affairs condemned the city's violent protests in a press briefing.
The vision, the impression of Hong Kong is simply fundamentally wrong. They're so far away from Hong Kong people's real sentiments and demands. We wish Beijing officials will truly try to understand what Hong Kong people really want. What happened in Beijing today, this afternoon, would actually help fan the fire of what's already been a tsunami of protest in Hong Kong.
In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump wants to begin withdrawing troops from Afghanistan before the 2020 election. That is according to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pompeo was asked during an event at the Economic Club of Washington if he expected to see a drawdown before November next year, and he answered, quote, "That's my directive from the President of the United States. He's been unambiguous, and the endless wars draw down," said Pompeo. Before winning the presidential election in 2016, Trump pledged to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan and end America's longest war. But he agreed after taking power to send over more soldiers, and now there are around 14,000 in Afghanistan. For the past year, the U.S. has been negotiating with the Taliban to reach a peace agreement ending the 18-year war. Mr. Pompeo said Monday the talks have made real progress, and he added that he was optimistic. The U.S. seems eager to speed up the peace talks, as Afghanistan prepares for a presidential election in September and America for the 2020 vote.
U.S. rapper A$AP Rocky pleaded not guilty to assault at his trial in Sweden over a street brawl, saying he acted in self-defense in a case that has stirred diplomatic tensions and outraged fans. The 30-year-old rapper, whose real name is Rakim Mayers, was arrested on July 3 along with 3 other people following the fight in Stockholm on June 30. One of them, the rapper's bodyguard, was later released. Part of the brawl was captured in an amateur video published by U.S. celebrity news outlet TMZ, when the rapper can be seen throwing a young man to the ground and then aiming several punches at him while he is down. Mayers, who faces a jail term of up to 2 years if convicted of assault, has claimed he was acting in self-defense, saying he was responding to harassment and provocations by the plaintiff. Before his arrest, the rapper published videos of his own on Instagram, purporting to show the lead-up to the fight. In those, the young man can be seen arguing with a musician over a pair of headphones, and the artist appears to repeatedly ask the man and his friend to stop following him and his entourage. One of the young men can also be seen hitting the artist's bodyguard. Despite the rapper's own plea of self-defense, prosecutor Daniel Senesan decided to press assault charges against the musician and 2 members of his entourage on July 25, stating that he believed what happened still amounted to a crime. Swedish law enforcement has also been accused of racism. Former U.S. Ambassador to Sweden, Mark Brzezinski, called the rapper's arrest a matter of racial injustice.
At least 57 inmates were killed during a prison riot in northern Brazil as rival gang factions fought each other. 16 of the dead were decapitated in the second major eruption of violence to rock the country's severely overpopulated and deadly prison system in as many months. Fighting broke out in the Altamira Regional Recovery Center at around 7 a.m. local time, according to an official from the para-state government's penitentiary department. 2 guards were taken hostage during the hours-long clashes, which were brought under control at around midday. The guards were eventually freed. No firearms were found at the scene, but improvised knives appear to have been used in the turf war, according to a statement issued by the penitentiary department. Some of the bodies had not yet been recovered due to the heat inside some of the prison structures. The Ministry of Justice and Public Security said ringleaders of the violence would be transferred to federal jails, which are more secure. About 311 prisoners were being held at the jail, which the department said was not overcrowded. It reportedly has a capacity of 200 inmates. An outbreak of violence in the same prison in September 2018 left at least 7 inmates dead, according to local media. Previously, guards had apparently foiled an attempted prison escape.
Going now to Indonesia, it has returned 7 shipping containers of illegally imported waste to France and Hong Kong, an official said, marking the latest move by a Southeast Asian nation to send back rubbish to their wealthy places of origin. Here's more.
Bagus ya, panas.
In other news, officials said 18 people were killed when a small military plane crashed into a residential area in the Pakistani city of Rawalpindi early on Tuesday. The plane crashed into a poor village near an upscale neighborhood. in the garrison city that is home to the Army's headquarters, creating a fireball that lit up the night sky and terrified residents. Local rescue spokesman Farouk Bat said all the bodies are badly burned, so DNA tests are required for identification. Prime Minister Imran Khan offered his condolences to the affected families and wished a quick recovery for the injured, according to a tweet by the Pakistani government. Pakistan has a checkered aviation safety record with frequent plane and helicopter crashes over the years. In 2016, a Pakistan International Airlines plane burst into flames after one of its two turboprop engines failed while traveling from remote northern Pakistan to Islamabad, killing more than 40 people.
The Polynesian culture in the Pacific, well known for its longboats and canoes, has also been associated for its explorations, first in the oceans and more recently in outer space. Hawaii correspondent Mio Asenas takes us to an event that not only celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, but more importantly, demonstrated Hawaii's ties to America's space program even to this day. Watch this.
I always see the connection between the seafarers and the spacefarers. They had vessels, they had a crew, navigation, they had a mission plan. The connection is wonderful. So
50 years ago, astronaut Neil Armstrong made one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. And Hawaii played a huge role in making that achievement possible.
As a matter of fact, you know, the word astronaut comes from star sailor. And so you can see the connection even in the words themselves.
The one-day event was recently held at Windward Community College in Kaneohe. There were free shows, a NASA exhibit showcasing actual moon rocks, and small Hawaiian flags that were brought to the lunar surface. There was also food, music, and lots of family fun, especially for children and even adults who might not remember a lot about this historic event.
What we're trying to is ignite the imagination of kids to follow in the footsteps of those bold astronauts, to take that risk, take that bold leap, and to pursue things that they think might be a little bit difficult, but maybe will be a life changer for them. And so what we do as teachers is we touch the future by teaching.
Most of the exhibits on display highlight the long and rich connection between America's space program and the Aloha State.
Hawaii played a very prime role in the Apollo program. Many people don't know that. And so from the very beginning, before they even went to the moon, the Apollo astronauts came to Hawaii and they explored the lava terrains of our mountainsides, because the basalt lava right here in Hawaii is very similar to the lava that they would have on the moon. When they came back, they splashed down on the Pacific Ocean about 900 miles away from our islands. They were picked up by an aircraft carrier and they were shipped straight to Pearl Harbor.
Even long after the Apollo mission, Hawaii continues to contribute in space exploration.
There are different organizations like High Seas, which does simulations to see what it would be like to live on the planet Mars. And so that's one of our simulations and our connections. There's another group called Pisces, which is looking at the aerospace industry in the state itself. Right. So, and there's also a possibility that we may establish a spaceport on the Big Island, and that's an exciting thing, and that would come through the Hawaii Spaceflight Lab, which is located on UH Manoa.
And now what about this new and exciting chapter for the next generation of spacefarers?
Artemis is the new moon program, and it was named purposely because in Greek mythology there were twins, a boy and a girl. The boy's name was Apollo, and the Apollo mission was named actually from a broader sense as opposed to just being a moon mission. Well, the new mission now, to go back to the moon, is named after his twin sister, Artemis. And so we're now looking to go back to the moon, and one of the goals is to try to reach it by 2024.
Reporting from Kaneohe, Hawaii, I'm Mio Asenas, 1 with 25.
The Church of Christ, or the Iglesia ni Cristo, held an Aid to Humanity event in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Here's Eduardo Boyes Jr.
Iglesia Iglesia ni Cristo or Church of Christ, in cooperation with the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, launched various activities under the project Aid to Humanity. Church members and officers donated Tila clothes to show support and unity in this endeavor. This is also in commemoration of the 105th anniversary of the Iglesia ni Cristo.
Led by ministers and church officers here in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, they helped and worked hand in hand to repackage the donated clothes. These clothes will be given to those invited loved ones and friends by Iglesia ni Cristo.
A medical mission was also conducted in today's event with the assistance of registered nurses and volunteers.
Lokal ng Philippine. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa pag-anyaya sa akin at ipagpapatuloy ko po ang aking pagsamba sa Iglesia ni Cristo. Sa lahat po ng Iglesia ni Cristo, binabalik ko po kayo ng happy 105th anniversary.
Visitors from different walks of life gave their smiles and thanks in exchange of the help given by volunteers, for they believe to always do good whenever possibly they can.
This kind of activity truly exemplifies the noble aim of the Iglesia ni Cristo's Aid to Humanity, that is, willing to share and to give for the benefit of the community. From Phnom Penh, Cambodia, I am Eduardo Y. Bielsa Jr., and I am one with 25.
Meanwhile, Iglesia ni Cristo in New Zealand celebrated its 105th anniversary. Public officials send their greetings. Here's Greg Besa, our EBC New Zealand Bureau correspondent.
It was 105 years ago when the Iglesia ni Cristo Church of Christ was established in the Philippines on July 27, 1914, through the instrumentality of Brother Felix Y. Manalo, who, being highly regarded by the church members as the last messenger of God, as the entirety of the church is celebrating its 105th anniversary all throughout the globe, the brethren across New Zealand are gathered today at Pakikohi Memorial Hall in Auckland to show and prove their unity, motivated by their strong faith in celebrating a very special occasion inside the Church of Christ.
When members of the church were arriving at the venue, they were filled with joy and excitement as they were preparing themselves for the celebration. The first part of the event was the INC Center stage, which was mainly participated in by the young members of the church, who outstandingly showcased their skills in acting and singing. The unfolding of the story, narrated through a musical play, depicted out the Christian doctrines and values being taught inside the church. The second part of the celebration was the international cuisine competition, during which the members from various congregations were assigned to prepare food representing countries such as China, Italy, India, and Philippines, among others. Apart from the food they prepared, they also put up stalls at designated areas inside the venue, as they wore costumes that best describe the countries they were representing for. The highlight of the celebration was the choral competition, wherein participating members from different congregations sang the songs conveying messages of faith, love, and hope the members of the church are firmly believing into. The competition was tight as members of choral groups, who were also wearing stylish dresses, performed their respective musical pieces beautifully and with much power. District Minister Brother Dennis Dahunan, and Minister of the Gospel Brother Edgar Hernandez, both of whom spearheaded the organizing of the event, expressed their appreciation and commendation to all who participated in the competition. Much more than this, both of them conveyed their heartfelt gratitude to the church administration for making the celebration possible, as they returned all the praises and glory to the Almighty God for the success of the event.
We would like to extend our many thanks po for the approval of this activity. It brings joy, gladness, and another strength to the faith of the brethren here in New Zealand po. We once again po express our profound gratitude to our Almighty God for, through the administration, He has given us this opportunity for the District of New Zealand to join our brethren all over the world to celebrate the 105th anniversary of the church.
For the members of the church, they were so glad to be part of the celebration as they conveyed their anniversary greetings to the church administration and to their brethren across the globe.
We would like to take this opportunity to thank and to wish everyone, all the members of the Church of Christ all over the world, a happy 105th anniversary.
We greet Brother Eduardo V. Manalo and all the brethren all over the world a happy 105th anniversary.
In behalf of our brethren in Wellington, I would like to greet all the brethren inside Iglesia ni Cristo Church, especially to our brother Eduardo V. Manalo. Happy 105th anniversary. Mahal po namin kayo.
Celebration awesome. I think Brother Edward had us get all together so we can enjoy each other's company and meet other brethren of the church, and also the competition is awesome. Well done to everybody. They're all winners because we're all in the church.
On the other hand, public officials in New Zealand congratulated the church on its 105th founding anniversary. Among others, Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Trevor Mallard, the third highest ranking official of the government, sent his letter greeting, while Philippine Ambassador Jesus Domingo and Hats City Mayor Ray Wallace transmitted their respective video greetings.
Magandang gabi sa lahat. And on behalf of the Philippine Embassy, we'd like to give our heartiest congratulations to the Iglesia ni Cristo on the occasion of its 105th anniversary. And we particularly like to congratulate Executive Minister Eduardo V. Manalo, and we've had the great honor and privilege of meeting last year, and he is also working with us as advisor for OFW Affairs. And we are very proud partners of the Kapatid here in New Zealand and of course in all over the world, and we look forward to a more fruitful cooperation in the months and years ahead. Congratulations and maraming salamat po.
As the brethren are traveling back to their respective towns and cities in New Zealand, they are looking forward for a big and meaningful celebration next year and the years to come. From Pakikoy Memorial Hall in Auckland, New Zealand, I am Gregor Besa. I am always one with 25.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Sa gitna ng dilim, ako ang mata sa sahing papawid. Ako ang dilat sa tuwing ang bayan ko ay tulog ng mahimbing. Ang aming buhay handang ialay para sa bayan. Kayo'y handang paglingkuran.
Join us in celebrating the 72nd anniversary of the Philippine Air Force.
Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 7:30 hanggang alas 8 ng umaga.
Asia markets rose modestly on Tuesday, with investors doubtful of any major breakthroughs in the latest round of US-China trade talks getting underway in Shanghai. The two-day negotiations in the financial hub will be the first face-to-face discussions since negotiations collapsed in May when U.S. President Donald Trump accused China of reneging on its commitment. Washington and Beijing have so far hit each other with punitive tariffs covering more than $360 billion in two-way trade in the year-long dispute. But little of substance is expected, and both sides have worked to lower expectations ahead of the meeting. Jake Parker, Senior Vice President at the U.S.-China Business Council, said, and I quote, "Realistically, this round of talks is about clarifying where the two sides stand after a significant lull in engagement." Hong Kong was up 0.2% in the afternoon, while Shanghai closed 0.4% higher.
The Bank of Japan kick-started several major central bank announcements this week after wrapping up its policy meeting on Tuesday with a status quo announcement. The Bank of Japan maintained its ultra-easy monetary policy and said it would not hesitate to take further measures if needed as lingering economic uncertainties cloud the global outlook. The move comes with central banks around the world expected to return to rate cuts in the face of nagging concerns, including the effects of U.S. President Donald Trump's trade policies. The BOJ slightly downgraded its inflation outlook to 1.0% of the year to March for the year to March 2020 and 1.3% for the following year, compared with previous forecasts for 1.1% and 1.4% respectively. The figures again fell far short of the 2% inflation that the BOJ has long set as its target, as figures seen as key to turbocharge the world's third largest economy despite a barrage of stimulus and monetary easing packages. Japan's central bankers said they would continue to monitor downside risks to economic activity and prices, mainly regarding the developments in overseas economies after their two-day meeting finished on Tuesday.
And the U.S. Federal Reserve policymakers will also start a two-day meeting later Tuesday, U.S. time, amid expectations of the first interest rate cut in a decade. The Federal Reserve is set to vaccinate the U.S. economy against a slowdown with the first interest rate cut in a decade, but the decision has been made more difficult by unrelenting political pressure. President Trump has constantly berated the Fed and its chairman, Jerome Powell, for failing to provide additional juice to the economy, which he has promised will grow by 3% and more each year. Powell and other Fed officials have said repeatedly they expect the U.S. economy to continue to grow and for inflation to eventually pick up, which makes the course correction now a bit unusual. Unemployment, one of the two metrics the Fed is required by law to focus on, is at the lowest in nearly 50 years. A strong jobs market would normally cause wages to rise, fueling inflation, the second key metric for the Fed. However, inflation has been largely absent, hovering below, sometimes well below, the 2% target. And President Trump's aggressive trade tactics have brought business investment to a screeching halt at a time when major economies like China are slowing and Brexit is weighing on Britain and the European Union.
Meanwhile, the pound slipped against the dollar to its lowest level since early 2017 amid firming expectations of a no-deal British withdrawal from the European Union. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he had no intention of meeting EU leaders in person until they showed a willingness to change their position on the Irish backstop and withdrawal agreement.
We can get a new deal. We're aiming for a new deal. But of course, Michael is absolutely right that it's responsible for any government to prepare for a no deal if we absolutely have to. And that's the message I've been getting across to our European friends, and I'm very confident that we'll get that. What we want to do is to make it absolutely clear that the backstop is no good. It's dead. It's got to go. The withdrawal agreement is dead. It's got to go. But there is scope to do a new deal.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has vowed to lead Britain out of the EU on October 31, even if this means doing so without a divorce agreement. On Monday, he urged EU leaders to drop their opposition to renegotiating Brexit. London stocks, meanwhile, rallied on corporate takeover news, with the FTSE 100 benchmark index of major blue-chip companies adding nearly 2%, vastly outperforming Eurozone peers, which ended on a softer note.
A hacker accessed more than 100 million credit card applications with U.S. financial heavyweight Capital One, the firm said on Monday, in one of the biggest data thefts to hit a financial services company. FBI agents arrested Paige Thompson, 33, a former Seattle technology company software engineer, after she boasted about the data theft on the information sharing site GitHub, according to authorities. According to Capital One, the data includes data regarding large numbers of credit card applications, likely tens of millions of applications, according to the criminal complaint. In a statement, Capital One said the hack affected 100 million individuals in the U.S. and 6 million in Canada. Thompson, who used the alias Erratic in online conversations, allegedly posted several times about the theft on GitHub and on social media. Capital One said it expects the breach to cost between $100 to $150 million in 2019. It added that free credit monitoring and identity protection will be made available to anyone affected.
Huawei reported a 23% surge in revenue for the 6 months to June, despite the blacklisting of the Chinese telecom giant by U.S. President Donald Trump on national security concerns. Huawei has been under immense pressure this year as Washington has lobbied allies worldwide to skirt the company's telecom gear over security concerns, and it may blacklisted the firm from both the U.S. market and buying crucial U.S. components. Sales reached 401.3 billion yuan in the first 6 months of the year, the company said, adding that it posted a net profit margin of 8.7%. Cubans are able to have Wi-Fi in their homes, another step forward in the diffusion of the internet, which Cuba's Vice Minister of Communications says is a tool to defend the revolution. Watch this.
Aquí no lo agarra. Se me fue, tengo una sola ratita. Ahora a este lugar, por favor.
Cuando hay 35 grados, la sensación de calor. La revolución es un fenómeno que los cubanos abrazan y que defienden en cualquiera de los campos, en los campos terrenales y, de ser necesario, también en los campos virtuales.
Bueno, yo lo que pienso es que es una facilidad para el pueblo cubano porque puede ampliarse más con la conexión, no tienen que estar dependiendo de los parques Wi-Fi, que es una obstinación eso de estar conectado, ya puedes conectarte fácilmente desde tu casa.
No, los precios no hemos hecho de que darlo porque para el trabajador no sirve.
A Singaporean engineering company has built a robot that can serve up a piping hot bowl of laksa, one of the city-state's most well-known dishes, in just 45 seconds. Let's take a look.
What I want is reach point one time, and you want to reach the same. So what I wanted is reach point one time, and you want to reach the same.
We have to actually be very precise in every step of doing the laksa. That include having the prawn in the laksa as well. They have to actually be very precise, and they have to do programming just to capture one prawn at a time. And when it comes to the gravy, they have to make sure that the gravy doesn't spill as well. He also actually wants to cut down repetitive stuff, repetitive work, and like for the chef, they can actually concentrate on just not only always serving clients with the laksa. They can actually also speak to the client, like help them with the laksa, and then top up the ingredients, clean up the stations. It's ready.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. You get the condiment there on the side. It's hot.
Reach point one time, and you want to reach the same.
We'll be back with more news when Eager News International returns. For the second time in less than 1 month, a widespread and intense heat wave impacted Europe with many new maximum and minimum temperature records, disruption to transport and infrastructure, and stress on people's health and the environment.
Belgium, Germany, Luxembourg and the Netherlands all saw new national temperature records as temperatures passed the 40 degrees Celsius mark. Paris recorded its hottest day on record with a temperature of 42.6 degrees Celsius at 4:30 in the afternoon. This is unprecedented. What's significant is that normally when you get a temperature record broken, it's by a fraction of a degree. What we saw yesterday was records being broken by 2, 3, 4 degrees. It was absolutely incredible. Climate change has made the record-breaking 2018 UK summer 30 times more likely. By 2050, these are expected to happen every other year.
The heat wave was caused by warm air coming up from North Africa and Spain. According to forecasts, the atmospheric flow will transport the heat towards Greenland, resulting in high temperatures and consequently enhanced melting. Persistent high melt and runoff the last few weeks, but season total running just below 2012 record high lows, according to climate scientists with the Danish Meteorological Institute. This will also impact Arctic sea ice, where the loss of ice extent through the first half of July matched loss rates observed in 2012, the year which had the lowest September sea ice extent in the satellite record, according to the U.S. National Snow and Ice Data Center. The July heat wave follows an unusually early and exceptionally intense heat wave in June, which set new temperature records in Europe and ensured that the month of June was the hottest on record for the continent, with the average temperature of 2 degrees Celsius above normal.
And as the United Kingdom basked in a heat wave, holidaymakers were flocking to the beaches for a cool dip. Let's take a look.
I think it's fabulous. It's obviously not so good for some people, but if you've got a day off and young kids, then great for a day on the beach.
In this country, I don't recall such a hot temperature. I think I remember 30s, but I think, to be honest, no, it's going to be the hottest.
The World Health Organization said nearly 1 year after the latest Ebola epidemic broke out in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the disease continues to devastate lives. Some 2,500 people have now been infected with the virus, of whom more than 1,700 have died in the year-long outbreak. Last week, WHO decided to declare the Ebola outbreak in Eastern Congo a global health emergency of international concern as a call to action to the world to end the scourge of Ebola. The 2018-2019 Ebola epidemic began on the 1st of August 2018 when it was confirmed that 4 cases had tested positive for Ebola virus disease in Kivu. Here's WHO's Executive Director for the Emergency Response Program, Dr. Michael Ryan in Geneva.
The difficulty in this response, as you've seen, is in order to do that, you have a very large operation that has to penetrate deeply into the community. In the context of conflict and mobility in North Kivu, that is a very difficult task. Sustaining that over a year in what often is a shooting war with multiple armed groups has been a challenge.
The current outbreak in North Kivu and Ituri is considered to be the second largest on record in history of one of the world's deadliest diseases. Currently, WHO is preparing the fourth response plan to be finalized. While there is no licensed treatment for Ebola, patients in eastern Congo are able to take part in clinical trials of vaccines. That's a change from the 2014 to 2016 outbreak in West Africa, with more than 11,000 people died.
Ebola is a disease that can be controlled without a vaccine. But in this case, and particularly because we're working in such a very difficult situation, we believe the vaccine has been vital in breaking the chains of transmission.
The epidemic is the first in which the Ebola vaccine has been used from the start of the outbreak in order to contain it. The vaccine is being deployed in what's called a ring vaccination approach, where all the people who have been in contact with a confirmed case, as well as the people they have been in contact with, are offered the vaccine.
Within the short term, with current EPI, we are in good shape regarding vaccine supply. But there are scenarios, especially if the epidemiology were to turn against us, in which we would be very stretched on that supply.
The intent is to block the virus' ability to spread by developing a wall of immunity in its path. As of this week, just over 170,000 people have been vaccinated and 1,300 treated with investigational therapies in 14 centers. Over 140,000 contacts had to be tracked and traced. Dr. Ryan said that WHO would continue to work with the national authorities to introduce a second vaccine, which would be important.
The Merck vaccine is specifically designed for an outbreak response. It's a single-dose vaccine. Protection is within 10 days, and therefore the vaccine is highly targeted at an outbreak situation. The J&J vaccine, while an excellent product, is a two-dose vaccine given 56 days apart. It requires quite a time to develop immunity. It could be and is potentially very useful in health workers and others, but there are operational challenges in using it in a full-scale epidemic response.
There had been a huge push toward increasing community acceptance and building trust in the population of North Kivu and Ituri, which has been traumatized and underserved for years, Dr. Ryan explained.
Yesterday I was looking at the numbers, and of all the vaccination rings that had to be started in the last 21 days, of those 242 cases, only 2 rings had not started because of community acceptance issues or security. When you think 240 of 242 vaccination rings were underway, that is not a result of a distrusting community. 95% of communities are now accepting safe and dignified burials. Again, someone coming into your village or your house and working with you, but taking your loved one away and burying them in a safe way, with all of the images we see of body bags. Again, this is a deeply traumatic time for a family, and the fact that 90 to 95% of those families accept that form of burial is a testament to how much they accept the response.
In other health news, the sense that winning the battle against AIDS is a done deal has been slowing progress on reducing new HIV infections. And in reality, it's far from over, according to the chief of the UN agency dedicated to tackling the virus. And what is more, Gunilla Carlson, the acting executive director of UNAIDS, says that if we forget about people at risk, such as intravenous drug users, men who have sex with men, and sex workers, we will not solve the problem with the rise of new HIV infections. In an interview, she said although world leaders had signed up for an AIDS-free generation by 2030, if we don't walk the talk, we might not get there. Let's listen in.
We are at a precarious point in the response to HIV. Some countries are making impressive gains, while others are experiencing rises in new HIV infections and even AIDS-related deaths. Annual gains are getting smaller, and the pace of progress is slowing down. UNAIDS report shows that key global AIDS targets for 2020 are unlikely to be met, even though some countries and regions have made good progress. Globally, there are now over 23 million people on treatment, surviving, thriving, and living healthy lives, and that's good news. But globally, 15 million people are still waiting for treatment, either not being tested or being tested and not having access to treatment and care yet. We are seeing continuing rises in new infections and AIDS-related death in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and in the Middle East and Northern Africa. Men are not still being reached as widely as women, and children are not getting access to treatment. Only half of all children living with HIV had access to treatment in 2018. Key populations, which now makes up to 54% of the new HIV infections, are still not being reached. And we are talking about sex workers, people who use drugs, men who have sex with men, transgender people, prisoners, and their partners. I don't underestimate the scale of challenges, but I do believe the end of AIDS is possible. This will, however, require increased political leadership and a renewed global commitment to end AIDS as part of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Alma Angeles, and we're one with 25.